if we do not get smart, we'll continue to be dribbled by people like Julius Malema, who don't even make sense. He's got all this problem with white people, contrary to his own lifestyle. And it's very important to state that the lifestyle you lead is just very much against what you talk about. It really is annoying. It's literal BS that someone of Malema's stature in our society, in our political space, keeps us thinking that this is a type of argument that really is interesting to South Africans. It's not. So this week in Parliament, the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, he sponsored a debate to discuss the recent developments around US versus South Africa. We do know that there has been a lot of friction, especially back and forth between the two states, but his debate, or the reason why he sponsored the debate, which is something that does happen in Parliament, a member of Parliament is allowed or is able to bring forward a topic that needs or should be discussed by the members of Parliament, not necessarily in order to formulate a particular decision, or it doesn't have to lead to any policy changes or anything like that. But the idea of sponsored debates is that over time, what happens is when there are decisions that are made, this particular debate or whatever is discussed in the debate can have an influence in terms of the direction of the National Assembly. So that's pretty much what Julius Malema brought forward. He wanted to bring a strong focus on US freezing funding to some initiatives. I know one of them is the PEPFAR initiative. The other is other organizations through the US aid program that were funded by the United States. And what Malema has basically brought forward is that since the friction, since the back and forth, the result of the US freezing funding for these initiatives is something that we should be looking at more closely, something that we should pay more attention to as South Africa, and obviously speaking in the platform, which is Parliament, basically saying the South African government should look more closely into this stance by the United States. However, when delivering his speech, I believe his speech was the opening speech to the broader debate, because other members of Parliament also participated. And when delivering the speech, he does speak on the points that I just highlighted, amongst others. He does touch on other points, just basically substantiating his political stance. We do note that Malema is far left. That's sort of where he leans. A lot of what he brought forward was also substantiating his position. And that's particularly where I want to just give him a commentary towards. So I decided to cut the video that was posted by the Daily Updates YouTube page. They posted his speech, and I decided to just cut 3 parts from that address. You're welcome to watch the full clip. I will link the direct link to the full video in the description box. You can watch the full video.
Foreign aid has always been a tool for Western imperialism and control. It must end with South Africa. We must expand our trade and strengthen relationship with China, India, Russia, Brazil, and Singapore, while emphasizing African unity.
So, despite how Malema might feel, right, speaking about trade, economy, and excluding the United States just does not make any sense. He mentions countries like China, India, particularly those two. We do know that they have very strong relations, strong ties with the US. They trade with the US quite a lot. Both of the economies sort of have created dependencies on either one of the two partners. And it goes without saying that these relations are very complex. It's not very straightforward. They disagree on a lot of issues. However, it does not neglect the fact that they work together. Malema speaks a lot about what history has taught us, what we need to learn from history. And what history has also taught us a lot, especially when growing an economy, is that you need to diversify your streams. You cannot just be a country that has or relies on one particular area. That is precisely why Cuba has received so much damage in the economy, because if you're relying on one aspect, if anything goes wrong, you need to be able to diversify your economy, diversify your income streams. We hear this a lot even when it comes to personal finance. The same applies with growing an economy in any country. And that's precisely what the likes of India and China have been doing, have been working towards, to say that technology, we're going to be the best. Agriculture, we're going to do the best. Manufacturing, textile, all of these things. Look at how China has developed to become one of the #1 electrical vehicle suppliers in the world. it wasn't like that many moons ago, but they've had to be adaptive, because the more adaptive you are, the more your economy can be secure. It is not simple, but I'm just saying, if you want to diversify your economy, you need many partners. The more the better. So you cannot just automatically rule out one partner just because you disagree on certain areas. They still work together despite the fact that they disagree, but also you need to measure what is the gain, what is the risk. People like Julius Malema are too true to the ideology that they neglect the risk. They only focus on, this is what I want to gain, this is who I am, and these are my values, and I don't want anyone to get involved. But it's a complete joke. It's even tiring to listen to how they keep saying we only need to focus on trading with Russia, India. It's irrelevant. All of those countries are trading with whoever they want to. They are trading with the US, so just cut it already.
Cuba, Libya, Venezuela, and Chile are examples of nations that have suffered from US interventions because of their socialist policies, justified by false intelligence to advance imperialism. Cuba has endured decades of sanctions for nationalization of strategic sectors of the economy, supporting African liberation and socialism.
And he references Cuba here, and I think the reference that he uses in terms of the relations between Cuba and the US is a classic example of what we tend to see a lot with people like Malema, who are definitely on the left, far left. We tend to see this a lot, and that is, whenever the outcome of their policies is not good, it's not me, it's not my ideology, it's this guy, it's him, not me. That's essentially what happens. In the case of Cuba, what happened in Cuba, he's correct. Cuba, the government then, I think it was in 1965, when Fidel Castro was still leading the country, they decided to nationalize US-owned companies that were operating in Cuba at the time. Hotels, like different companies, different industries that operating in Cuba. They decided to nationalize without compensation. Other countries, also in the Latin America country, other sort of social mixed economy countries, like he mentioned Singapore as well, they also had the same sort of route because they wanted to be independent. They wanted to be more self-reliant and not so reliant in US, because they wanted to kind of cut off the influence and so forth. Not necessarily a terrible cause, but what other countries did is that they were able to negotiate with the US owners. They said, okay, cool, Mr. US, I know you've got a company here, wada. I really just want to be able to take back certain industries. I want to be able to own certain aspects of my economy as the owner or as the leader of my country. I don't want you owning mining, this and that. I want to have my own stake as well, to be free and independent from influence from you. Sensible, understandable, but they negotiated. They did not just snatch away companies that were owned by the US without compensation, because when you do that, when you expropriate without compensation, there are risks to it, there are consequences, and that's precisely why US just put what would be, it's a sanction, but it's also an embargo at the same time on Cuba, which has remained up to this day because of decisions that were taken in the 1960s when Fidel Castro was still the leader. And what's also very tragic, right, in the case of expropriation without compensation, it's very much a socialist idea, right? It's all the way in the left. It is not in line with what the government is supposed to be doing. Governments are there to serve people. They're there to act in the best interest of the people that they serve, whichever way you wish to phrase that, right? But the bottom line is, governments are there for people. But what you tend to find with governments like that of Cuba, and what Julius Malema is trying to sort of position himself as, that they're true to their ideology. The expropriation without compensation has only but ruined the prospect of the people of Cuba. They are all running to the States, running to neighboring countries, fleeing from the state that they are in now. They were able to expropriate, get the independence, but what came with that? The risks were just too great. And on top of that, Cuba, initially, they had a strong reliance on what was the Soviet Union then. They figured that, no, if we scrap out and expropriate US-based companies, right, and expropriate and basically steal, that's one way to look at it. Expropriation or compensation is basically stealing. Why don't you build your own company? Why must you take existing companies that have already been built from the bottom up and you just take them without compensation? It's a form of stealing. They justified that saying, no, we want to be independent. They thought at the time that the Soviet Union was going to be around and was going to be strong over time. But when the Soviet Union fell, whatever reliance that Cuba had on the Soviet Union, it fell, that also too disappeared, because what Cuba at the time had envisioned was, we get the US out, we take over whatever areas they were part of, we steal that, basically it's theft as a government, and we are going to continue trading with the Soviet Union. Those countries in the Soviet Union, we're going to make them our strong partners, we're going to generate money through them, we're going to grow our economy, just as Malema is envisioning now. Guess what? The Soviet Union collapsed. It was a complete collapse because of the same ideology, and then Cuba was stranded. People in Cuba have been suffering ever since. And that is just the repercussions. They are repercussions. And even if you look at this whole idea of freeing from the US, we want to be independent from the United States, we do not need the influence of the United States, that's understandable. I can understand, I get that. But no one talks, these people do not talk about the dominance and the expansion of China into Africa, as one example. China is rapidly expanding into Africa in many ways, and the biggest risk of this expansion of China is that you cannot industrialize if China has got a strong presence in your country. It's impossible, because you cannot manufacture anything in your country. China does the manufacturing. China is also very much responsive and adaptive. They will always just be bigger, better, stronger. So if we want to look at the US and say we do not want the influence and dominance of the US, but we also comfortable with China, China has the second largest economy in the world. Hence, they are expanding and growing to the exact same playbook as the United States. So really, I tend to say this a lot, that I'm not sure if there's one good guy, one bad guy. I just think that it's politics. And I think for us to be able to win at politics, especially in sort of the global stage, we don't need people like Julius Malema, who are very one-sided and very biased in their analysis.
The majority of South Africans love their whites. They worship them everywhere they go. Why will they kill them? They always seek white validation and affirmation of whiteness. It is a black talent. It is a black talent. It is not a black talent until white people say so. If it is a black skill or innovation, it is not until white say so. If it is black quality product, it will have to pass many hands before they endorse this product. Any political party without...
That's Julius Malema. If we love our whites, so does he. He also loves his whites, right? So much that he lives with them, apparently. That's the story that I heard. That wherever he stays, he lives with another family, and that is not a black family. So he too loves his whites. And I think there's it's very annoying. It's very, very annoying, because of all the things that you can present in Parliament, to present these petty, useless arguments. Malema is not a very intelligent guy. He's not a very intelligent leader, because why do you always have to push this in our face? What is very, very important to note is that when it comes to spending, right? He says there that black people don't want to spend on other black people things, because if it does not approved by whites, people don't care. I can list a long list of areas where people see value, they will spend. Where people see value, they will pour out their money. One example, Joyous Celebration. They have been around for decades. They provide a lot of value. A lot of South Africans are religious. They are the music group that provides that service to them. They make money. They've been killing it ever since. They've been growing from strength to strength. Amapiano, music in general, right? One of the genres that black people lead a lot in South Africa is one particular genre is Amapiano. People support that in droves, whether it is streaming music, buying the music, going to the shows, supporting these artists. These small entrepreneurs, one of them who I really like is Doltema. She is the owner of this head wrap company. They do these really nice head wraps, and they do these nice dresses that are so flowy and so pretty. I'm just waiting for an occasion to be able to support that brand, but I love her products. She's been growing from strength to strength. Started off selling online, using social media to push her brand, to a point that today she's got a whole store where people can go in, experience, touch, feel, fit, and support her business. You've got the TikTok influences, the TikTok era, which has really, really taken over in South Africa. There are so many creators that we got to meet and know on TikTok. I love TikTok. I enjoy TikTok a lot. Who we got to meet and love on TikTok, who have literally changed their lives. because of the support that they receive from black South Africans. These are black creators. It has nothing to do with white people are dictating to anyone. We support them because what they provide is good. What they provide is of good value. It's that simple. It's that simple. And the list is long. The list is endless. Whether it's TikTok creators, whether it's YouTube creators, some of these guys have over 2 million followers and they're South African. They're black. Why? We support them a lot because what they provide is good value. Where there's value, people will support. And by the way, the support that I'm talking about is purely organic. Another perfect example is the Maskandi genre. Maskandi is huge in South Africa. It's got a lot of support. Those artists have a lot of support. They are in their own league in terms of the music that they offer, the response that they get back from the people that they do the music for, their audience. It's a completely different space. I follow some of the big artists. I look at their pages, the interaction. They are like the Michael Jacksons of the genre. They treat it like rock stars. It's unbelievable. The love that they get, they sell out shows. It's insane. And it's all organic. So it really, really is annoying. It's literal BS that someone of Malema's stature in our society, in our political space, keeps us thinking that this is a type of argument that really is interesting to South Africans. It's not. And I think in conclusion, what I want to say is that there's really nothing we can do about Malema's perspective in life and how he views the world. There's nothing we can do about it. No one can persuade him. It's who he is, how it's always been. But I think it's also important that I state that this position can be very problematic. Problematic in the sense that he's not just the only person who views the world from this lens. He's not the only one. There are many people, not just in the EFF, but in our parliament in general. There's a lot of people within the ANC who view the world from this perspective that no, our ideology is best. If our ideology doesn't work, it's not us. We don't need to reshape or anything. It's everyone else but us. There's a lot of people who believe that the US can go basically shove it. We don't need the US, when it's just contradiction to everything else that we see and we sort of know about how the world is moving. The US is the largest economy in the world. It's not so much about, playing to their tune, but it's also just being smart with how you engage with the US, because at the same time you do need to trade. You need trade partners. You cannot just be an island on your own. The people that they are so eager to trade with are not that eager because they're still trading with the US. So all of these things put together, for me, I believe it's really problematic. And it's even more problematic that Malema is not the only one, like I said, even within the ANC. And that's where we come in. We are the ones that need to be able to be way smarter when it comes to these things. I'm not saying watch this video and then automatically stand where I stand or believe what I believe. But all I'm just saying is listen to these guys and just interrogate what they say. That's the bare minimum that you can do. If we do not get smart, we'll continue to be dribbled by people like Julius Malema who don't even make sense. He's got all this problem with white people contrary to his own lifestyle. And it's very important to state that the lifestyle you lead is just very much against what you talk about. And if you're such a good leader, why can't you just walk the talk? What's so difficult about that? And I often say this, that when the ANC took power in 1994, they did not win power because they were going to basically advance one particular group in South Africa over the other groups in South Africa. They did not win to be able to push their own ideologies at whatever cost. That's not why they won. They did not win by a landslide because that's what they pitched. When they came into power at the time of Nelson Mandela, they pitched that they're going to grow South Africa. They're going to make South Africa a prosperous, safe country for all of us to live and grow, and all of that in unity. They spoke about unity. So when you see them doing these 180s and the U-turns in terms of what they are actually in power for, it's important that we then need to be able to understand what's going on. We need to be able to call them out for it. We need to be able to show that we do not agree by not supporting them, because these stances are dangerous. All the countries that have taken the same approach, we want to be free from the US, we want to be free from imperial what. Listen, you are not an island. You are not an island. And if you think China is your buddy, China is taking every industry, they're owning it, and they're basically leaving you with crumbs. They'll just tell you, what we will do is we'll build a bridge. We'll take every other thing, we'll build a bridge, right? If you think US dominance is the worst possible thing to happen, Chinese dominance, we're going to write books about that. Because I can tell you now, I'm not convinced. I am not convinced. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Just a reminder before you go, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Your support would be highly appreciated. Until next time.